Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our panel discussion today with these wonderful people from MultiChoice. We only got to talk for about 45 and then open the floor a little bit because I'm sure there's some burning questions you want to ask all these people. But let me just introduce them to you. I want to start with Nicola van Niekerk. She's our head of content for the premium market and co-productions. Waldimar Pelser, director for premium channels. Victor Aghahowa, head of production from African Magic in Nigeria. And then Tebogo Matlawa, head of scripted content for middle and mass market. And Lerato Moruti, senior manager for reality and entertainment for middle and mass market. Yeah, and these are the people looking after the content at MultiChoice. The past fiscal, we have done about 6,700 hours of content, which will be ramped up significantly over the next few years. And maybe I just want to kick off with Nicola and ask, why are we ramping up our content so much? What's going on? What is this Comcast deal that everybody's talking about? And why are we doubling our content over the next few years?
You know, we're in the can you hear me? I can't hear myself. Okay, here we go. We're in the great position that we've got a new deal with Comcast to expand the Showmax platform. And along with that comes a very big responsibility of adding about 6,500 hours over the next 3 years and to grow in Victor's market, so West Africa, East Africa, South Africa, exponentially.
Well, speaking of Victor's market, what then is MultiChoice's strategy, not just for South Africa, but for the whole African continent? On which markets are we, and what is the strategy to, and I hear this word called hyperlocal.
Yes, yeah.
So what is it?
I think that we've seen that the success of MultiChoice definitely lies in the creation of hyperlocal pieces of content. That means that we've divided our markets very well into specific demographics, and we know exactly what it is that they want to see. And what the one market wants to see is not necessarily what the other market wants to see. So one homogeneous piece of content across all of them will not work as well as pieces of content tailor-made for those individual demographics. So that is how we are going to expand. We've carved those 600, 500 hours into different demographics and allocated it into the markets, and that's where we'll be ramping up.
So does that mean there's a commissioning staff or a small little commissioning hub in Ethiopia, in Nigeria, in Mozambique, in Kenya?
Yes, yeah, so we've got commissioning hubs in West Africa, East Africa, Southern Africa, and South Africa now. So we've not only ramped up the hours, but also the amount of people who have to look and help create this content.
Got you. So from a premium market point of view, what is the current demands on scripted and non-scripted genres for the premium market? What do our audiences tell us? What do they want to see? And what's our strategy to hit these scripted and non-scripted market? What are the things that stand out? And sorry, this is a multi-pronged question, but what's been some of the great successes for your premium audience recently?
I'm actually, so I'm going to answer specifically to Showmax, and then I'm going to hand over for premium channels to Waldimar. But in terms of the premium channels for Showmax, I'll say that the documentaries that we've been chasing have just delivered exponentially, and we'll keep doing that. The dramas that we've been doing also are amazing. So we're definitely looking at sort of growing in that market, slightly younger, and slightly more out there, but when I say out there, I don't mean niche. I don't mean only sex, which is what a lot of people think. But so documentary, drama, what we call emotainment, so what Lerato does in her market, but into the premium market is what we want to do, specifically aimed at Showmax. But I'll let Waldimar speak to the channels.
Because, yes, so...
yes, Alfred.
Am I still off or on? Hello?
Sorry.
Hi.
Hi. Waldimar is still off. Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have a handheld maybe for Waldimar? Yes. Project. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the...
Work
All right. Handheld here.
Hello? Hi.
Any...
Hi. Hello?
Is hy aan by jou? No.
Hello?
Yes.
Is that working?
Yes.
Fantastic. Hi. Thanks, Wikus. So the people in this room are our partners in establishing, of course, what it is that will work next. Looking backward to rating successes over the past years can only tell us so much about our market. We know where the appetite was this year, we know where it was last year, but in order to correctly anticipate what will be the outlier next year requires producers and content experts to be finely attuned to the particular markets that we serve. For linear, our risk appetite is quite low when it comes to experimenting wildly in key primetime slots. We just can't afford to do that. We need to know that with our partners sitting in this room, that they understand exactly who they are making content for, and that it will feel both familiar to that content and remind them that, yes, we understand exactly who you are. This is content that couldn't have been acquired from abroad. This is content that could only have been made here. So yes, there is a familiarity to it, but it continues to surprise. And that's a recipe that doesn't help anybody, but those partners who are our most valued content creators understand who we are serving with our channels. They watch the channels, they consume the products that we have in market. And our most productive conversations, as we try to answer this ever-evolving question about what it is that audiences want, our most productive conversations with producers are those with producers who consume our content and who know on a very visceral level who the audience is. The more generic it is, the less likely it is to succeed. We're looking for fresh drama ideas always. It's a very important slot for KykNet on the Afrikaans premium side. And unscripted reality shows. We're very proud to be working on some very big format reality shows at KykNet. We have 5 or 6 international formats on platform at the moment. But that's not the pillar of our success. We must keep on growing new formats ourselves. So we're looking for new ideas always. Mnet still commissions for 101. We have a fantastic family drama that's filming at the moment on the Cape Peninsula that's DXing in January. And in the documentary space, we do quite a bit there as well. But most of our scripted and reality shows at the moment in premium are picked up by KykNet. So when you do talk to us, please come, but please bring insights into our market that can help shape our own insights into that market.
Yeah, thanks. Nicola, last question. Your other part of your portfolio is international co-productions. What makes a good international co-production, and can somebody pitch an international co-production to MultiChoice if they don't have a partner, international partner on board? What happens then? But first of all, what are we looking for a good co-prod?
Co-productions are incredibly difficult pieces of content. And I think, a lot of producers come to us and they say, this is an important story to tell, and that doesn't always work. So as a producer, you need to assess your story and say that where would the story work? Yes, will it work in a very specific demographic, like I said, hyper-locally in South Africa, but where else would it work? Which other broadcaster would like that? And to know that, you need to understand all of the broadcasters' strategies. What is Australia looking for? What's Europe looking for? What works well in America? Because what we do is we too often assume that a story that will work locally will resonate internationally. So we've had a lot of producers come to us and say, this is a good piece of content, we agree, but then we are always unable to close any sort of finance. So I've found that the best producers who put these deals together engages with international broadcasters first, to say, yes, there is actually international appetite, and then they come locally and say, then we'll go ahead. That makes it a lot easier for us. Yeah. It's not to say that we won't fund development on a great idea before it's gone internationally, but it does help a lot if the producer already has reached out to internationals to assess their appetite.
So if there's not an international partner involved, do we only develop, let's say, a deck or a pilot, yes, and then start shopping?
Yeah. So if there's a great idea that we like, we will do a phase 1 development deal, which is basically a strong deck and a phase 1, so it's phase 1 development is a deck and a pilot script that we will allow the producer and ourselves to shop it internationally first before we go to full development. And
do you have a sense of certain genres that are doing better for scripted content internationally than...
Yes.
Yeah.
What did I hear from an international the other day? It is crime, it's English, and it's in a beautiful setting. So I can definitely tell that those ones work the best. We're always looking for something that does not start with a dead body on the floor, because we get that a lot, or with an alcoholic cop. But but those things resonate. But I don't know if you can think outside the alcoholic cob box, that will be great.
Tebogo, can you just give us a little bit more deeper insight into the mass and middle market and what scripted content resonates currently with this market, and what are you looking for?
Thanks, Wikus. So what resonates with this market is this market wants to see themselves reflected back onto society, right? The TV screen is a mirror that reflects back to society what they want to see. Also, as producers, you need to take into account the climate at which these viewers and audiences are absorbing the content, right? So one thing we realized, the country is going through a lot right now, and audiences want to get home to be entertained and forget a bit that the petrol costs 25 rands per liter, right? So what we're seeing is they want content that's gonna uplift them, entertain them, and give them hope, you know? We just launched a telenovela on Mzansi Wetu in July, and we purpose called Sibongile and the Dlaminis. And we purposefully drafted it to be a story of hope, you know? Our marketing was geared at that. The story creation was geared at that, because that's what people are wanting to do. So when producers are developing or working on content, they need to look outside their bubble of their own existence and think about what the audiences they're trying to cater for are going through, right? But it's also important to highlight that we are an entertainment company, so the content we do must entertain, excite, you know, and enthrall. So even when taking into account these stories, it's important to understand that at the core, we are a commercial entity, and our job is to entertain our viewers. So that's kind of what the kind of stuff we're looking for.
Are there any scripted genres that does not sit well on mass and middle market? I mean, horror, sci-fi, you've kind of tried it all, but are there certain genres that really resonate and others where you just go,
Look, we had a very good strategy a couple of years ago, which we are working on a new strategy, because everyone was doing that. But we're looking at working on genres that work are obviously family dramas, action, and not violence. I think people need to distinguish between action, not violence. We cater to both the OTT and the linear space. So with OTT, you can go a bit more risque, and that does not mean sex, I want to repeat. Whereas in the linear platforms are very family-based viewing. Our viewers, it's a third-generation household. For most of our viewers, you've got the grandparent, the parent, and the child. So always think about making content that, would you watch this with your grandmother? Yeah. And if you wouldn't watch it with your grandmother, why would our audiences then go and watch that with their grandmothers, right? So you need to take, mystery hasn't worked for us. Our audiences like to be involved on the narrative and go on the journey. So dramatic irony remains a pillar for us. Female-led POVs, a large portion of our audiences are female. So it needs to be stories that resonate with that. We've learned that if the wife decides we're watching this, they will watch it. So it's something we kind of gear to and drive for. But yeah, not too much violence, not a lot of sex and mystery. But we really are looking at going into various genres. But if you can give us a show that works for the market inside the genre, we kind of quite open looking to a lot of things in that space.
Yeah. Maybe a joint question for Tebogo and Victor. Is there something like a pan-African scripted genre? Or are we still between East Africa, West Africa, and Southern Africa, still very much culturally aligned to just our stories? Or do you foresee a time where we can take hands between South and East, or East and West, and create narratives that become more pan-African than hyper-local?
Hi, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Oh,
Can you hear me now?
not yet.
Mic check.
Yep.
Hi. I'd say because right now I'm sitting on two separate countries, right? Out west, we produce in Nigeria, we produce in Ghana. And these are two countries with distinct cultural differences and a dramatic history. At the core of it, in terms of hyperlocal, we want stories where people see themselves, right? But if you zoom out, almost all stories tend to deal with universal emotions, right? It's at the core of it is what it means to be human. And if we can match those two things, which is the appreciation of your own culture while telling a story that doesn't need, I was about to say subtitles, but I don't mean physical subtitles, I mean emotional subtitles. We will watch, we've all grown up watching things that were made by people who have no idea how we live. So I don't think that has always been a concern for us. The question is if the story can touch us where we are human while celebrating our differences. That has always been our core. I mean, this is a very there are different cultures and countries up on this panel, but we all consume each other's content. So I do see more and more of that, the globalization, but stories will always come from one fundamental place, which is our need to connect as human beings. So yes, we are getting closer and closer to that Pan-African show. Yeah. But if we do it, it won't be for size or scale or for the glam of the collaboration. It will be because the story needs to cross these borders so that we don't see the borders anymore.
Yeah, just to add on to that, that's a very important note Victor makes, because a lot of the pitches we get is the concept of Pan-African. But is it a story that really does exist between those regions? Rather than say, no, we'll be available in 54 markets and right? Because that's, you then crafting the story. So if there's something authentically that works in there, there's no reason why we wouldn't look at it. But what we found out is that we enjoyed Africa Magic, for instance, launched way before Mzansi Magic, right? And we loved it in South Africa and almost brought to the rise of Mzansi Magic. But it was made for Nigerians, with Nigerians, and South Africans enjoyed it to a point where MultiChoice said, let's do this in South Africa. So that's a clear model of stuff that was made for a region but had universal themes of love, jealousy, betrayal. And South Africans loved it so much that it inspired the birth of Mzansi Magic. Mzansi Magic inspired the birth of many other channels. Like as we said this morning, we now have 44 locally owned channels that cater to the various segments. But they're all at their core tell universal stories that resonate with that region.
Yeah. Lerato, over to you. What types of reality and entertainment shows do you find shoot out the lights for mass and middle market? What do people want to see when it comes to reality? And I have a follow-up question to that, but let's get there later.
I might forget the second one. Wow. When I started this job about 4 years ago, we used to deliver about 17, 18 titles a year. We deliver about 50 titles a year. And with that variety, with that volume of content, it means we require almost every genre that is out there of content. And, what is reality, right? Reality is voyeurism. It's tabloid, right? It's all the scandalous things that they polish up when they do fiction. And I think the difficult part of it is that it is not fiction. You have to find people that live that life. And as Tebogo said that, right, it's the context on which we do this content in South Africa that we used to be doing real hardcore content, but with the challenges that we have, people don't want to do real hardcore content, but still want that voyeurism of looking into people's lives. So what has worked well, I think, in terms of us testing all these genres that we do as reality, it's things like the Bala brothers, right? You can see that it's a normal family, it's a celebrity family, but they have deep family-seated issues. And people love following them because they resonate with what's going through in their lives, but they actually see them sorting it out, right? So family-based reality shows work very well for us. They are serialized. Sometimes they work better than the soapies. Yeah, Mselikus, I think, are doing about 1.7 million viewership through its entire 7-series episode. But also people like stories about lovers, right? Love is such an emotive thing that everybody wants to look into everybody else's relationship and wonder what's going on in there. So, just ranging from the honeymoon phase, will you, I have a crush on you, will you marry me, right? Yeah, I know you're dating Wikus, but forget him, I can do better. So it's those kind of love stories that we're looking for, right? And, later on I decide I'm tired of you actually, I want to go back to Tebogo. And we also have a reality.
That's soon.
No, it doesn't last long. We are young, we are fresh, we do it like that. And yeah, the series is called, the series, I think one of the producers is actually in the audience, right? Where you literally do a series of somebody who's married to somebody and they decide, actually, I don't want this relationship anymore. I want to go back to the lover that went off. So we break up people on air with the hope of helping them meet other people and fall in love with those. But we're also into competition reality shows. Idols is doing its last season. It is tired. We're looking for locally developed formats. If you have a great idea, we have development money to develop local formats. We just need something fresh, something different, something great that we can play with that will resonate to our markets. I think in the meantime, as we are searching for these content ideas, we are coming back with Clash of the Choirs. We're going to play with something called The Four. But I think our first prize is to say to our producers, what do you have? What have you been dreaming about? What is this big thing that we can do? All right. Big Brother is doing very well for us, but we know our markets. We cater to a young market. They get tired. They get finicky. What do you have that you can imagine that we can do that can replace something like a Big Brother?
Yeah.
We do a lot of help TV, and I think one of those help TV is a show called Abandoned. It's been running for a while. And what we do is that we help people or children find parents that abandoned them. And, and it's not only that, I'm going to find my parent, they abandoned me, but it's also healing those wounds. The child having to understand why I was abandoned. Doing DNA tests, right? People don't have money to go do a DNA test, but through a TV show, we're able to say, we'll pay for a DNA test, let's go on to your journey. So, I think South Africans always look for content that has meaning, that offer purpose. So when people come with their concepts, we always say, what does it do? Right? So, and I think if you submit that proposal and you can answer, what does it do? Why are we doing it? And this is the how of why we're going to do it. And when you're sitting there, you can see an entertainment value, but also it has a reason for existing. Then you're on the money. We can look at it and we can run with it and we can make magic.
Are there ethically or morally places that you won't go with reality TV for linear channels?
Yes, right.
So there is a line.
There is a line. There is a line. We don't exist to break people's spirits, right? There's an ethical code that you don't cross. I've worked for television for a long time, doing educational content and public service content when I was working for SABC. So you always have to be aware of the BCCSA code to say, yes, we are tabloid, yes, we are scandalous, but there's a line you don't cross. Culturally, from sexism point of view, from a racial perspective, we always try and maintain that balance because, like I said, why are we doing this piece of content? Yeah.
Thanks, Lerato. And then Waldimar, Mnet has always kind of been the home of the blockbuster. What is currently your channel's view on film? What is the strategy to support local film? And is there still a future for pre-sales, for films, for full commissions and films, TV films? What is your strategy for film?
Yeah, because the Mnet 101 strategy remains unchanged. One of the pillars of our success on the channel is the Sunday 8 p.m. blockbuster. And after COVID, we've seen a wonderful renaissance in that genre. It's really, really very popular. It's buttressed at 7 p.m. with Carte Blanche, which is going from strength to strength. So Mnet really relies on acquired international content, the very best of the local, of the international currents. And we have no intention of shifting focus on 101. On 101, there's some room always for local commissions, but most of our local film commissions go to Afrikaans in the premium space. We just 2 weeks ago concluded the 11th Kyknet Silverskerm Festival, which is a celebration of film mostly in Afrikaans, short films, documentary, and feature films. It would be foolish to deny that the addressable audience for local films has been growing. I think all of us who work in this industry is acutely aware of the fact that it's been harder and harder to fill up movie theaters. So whereas TV movies remain important for us, we cannot abandon the feature film. And there we need ideas and pitches that are intent on helping us solve this problem of theaters that are not full. Our freedom to play in niches in film is curtailed when we cannot first get full theaters with very commercial, very popular movies that will speak to as broad church as possible, as wide an audience as possible. So yes, we remain committed to the film genre. We constantly have films in development. We're constantly looking for pre-sale opportunities. The volumes are not massive. It's constantly a struggle to find budget for that, but we are doing so. Please come to us with pitches. The doors are very much open.
And then, what are the trends that you're seeing in the viewing patterns on your linear channels? What do people want? What do they tune in for? What don't they want to see?
So I'm going to answer with reference to Kyknet More Than 101, because in it 101 is mostly international acquired content. And much of what my colleagues said, Tebogo said and Lerato said, this is true for Kyknet as well. Very few Kyknet viewers watch or consume on a phone. It's mostly on a television set in the lounge or living room or the bedroom. God forbid, but the bedroom. But in those other rooms, the kids are present, not in the bedroom. And the grandparents are also not in the bedroom, but in the other rooms where Kyknet is viewed. And so it is very much family viewing, which is scheduled in prime time. And the most expensive slots for us, where we take great care to look for the best possible ideas, are at 8 p.m. Throughout the week. Tuesday is our drama slot. We look quite far in advance there with Nicola and the premium content team to find the best pitches for drama. What do our viewers want there? Well, they want to feel something. They don't want to see generic content that could just as well have been acquired from somewhere else. This must be uniquely South African, and in the case of the Kyknet audience, it must show an understanding of that audience, not another audience. It must show warmth, it must show optimism, it must show authenticity. I think the appetite for gimmicks is quite limited. People want to know that they're spending that hour with us in the scripted space, and when they get up, they will be changed. And they will want to come back the next week. It really needs to touch an audience, and the themes there, are universal themes. These are not specific themes, but the setting for the story is quite specific. It cannot be generic. It needs to be specific, and it needs to show understanding of who the audience is. So in the scripted space, warmth, authenticity, optimism, and for unscripted, as Tebogo said, it's a mirror. We want to see ourselves on screen. That which works. The shows that Lerato works on, concepts that remind us as individuals, family members, and members of communities and South Africans who we are, that tends to work. And really, how long is a piece of string? It can be almost anything. It's a combination on Kyknet of big format international shows and locally developed reality formats. So there's no, content that does not work is typically content that is inauthentic or too risque for early evening primetime viewing.
And then Kyknet has over the years gotten comedy quite right. Comedy's been resonating really well with the Kyknet market, and there's a really good comedies every Monday. Tebogo, is there space for comedy in mass and middle market? Is there something you would look at? Is there something you want to venture into? Because it's notoriously hard to get comedy right.
Yeah, look, it is a tough concept, but we've already this year put out two pieces. One called Lenyalo Hasepapadi, and currently on air we have Aghahowa. We also will have a comedy going out in Showmax in October. I'm not sure I can say the title yet, but we have where we have a comedy coming out on Showmax as well in the market. It is indeed a very difficult genre, and it's a genre we said, why not do it? Why not try it, right? To develop comedic writers, you have to start doing comedic shows so that they also know there's an avenue for them, right? A lot of people don't venture into comedic writing because there wasn't many shows there. So it's definitely a genre we are looking at. Like I said, the climate of the countries, people want to laugh, you know, how bad, you know. So that's something we definitely are looking at doing for in the future.
Great.
And Showmax is interested in a stand-up comedy show, but I think there needs to be a format to it, right? It can't be a walk on and off stage. And I think if we think about it in the context of story, within a reality genre as well, you know, what interesting things can come out that we can invest in. And I always say with Showmax, it's so hard, right, with these streaming services. Like if you think about it as Sunday Times back in the day, would it make headlines, right? So when you can come up with a title that would make a headline, it really forces viewers to then subscribe and come watch our content. So if we can have something that appeals to their taste and stand-up comedy, and it's within a format and it tells a story, then you might have a winner.
All right, and then Victor, what's happening in West Africa and on Africa Magic? What's your strategy for the next few months and further into the future? What are we going to see, and what should producers bring to your table if they want to make programming for Africa Magic?
Right. So, check. You can all hear me? Because I can't. Okay, awesome. Thank you. I'll put it like this. Out west, it's slightly different because we, over years, sort of put ourselves in a box because the need to appeal to the broadest possible audience means that we learn to consume various genres. We've taught generations to consume various genres as imports, so to speak. So I'll give an example of what I mean. We've never had a locally made mockumentary show. We almost never had a locally made. There's a long list I could go through of stuff we've never made locally because we just always consume.
Can I just ask, is it because you've never ventured in that direction, or is it something that West African audiences are just not interested in?
So we are clearly interested in it. Why we didn't venture into it, to answer that question, I will answer the second question, which is, what are the tentpoles we're using now? We'll start with a certain phrase that was used in our television for about 25 years, which was aspirational. And we're sort of switching that word out now with authentic. Because what started to happen was a lot of the people who grew up consuming television were bombarded with images and stories that were designed to tell us what we should be, not who we actually are. So people started distrusting local television more and more and started reaching more towards foreign entertainment, which is why the famous quote is, a Nigerian can be dropped in Times Square and fit right in, and then be dropped right in his village and fit right in seamlessly. I mean, it's usually called code switching, I believe it's called. We call it linguistic accommodation. But yeah, it's this thing where entire generations built our dress sense. Everything is a mix mash of certain things. And over the last maybe 15 to 20 years, it's been our music that has taken that and said, all right, we're a little bit of everything, but let's reach back to our history, roll it all together. We can't be that anymore, but we won't be who you tell us to be. This is who we are, right? So if we swap out aspirational for authentic, then the next thing is emotional connection. As Tebogo and the others have pointed out, we aren't doing too great economically, and we know this. So what tends to happen is people want escapism, but not the type of escapism that then asks them to go somewhere they will never actually be. So it's to show them hope in their everyday life. But we just want to have fun for a little bit of time, right? But the most important thing is whatever we're trying to do, whatever genre we are going to expand to, because now we're expanding to genres we've never done before. This year is going to be a lot of fun. We are curious to see how the audience accepts certain things. We will learn a lot, what works and what doesn't work, but we are willing to take the risk. So we are striving for emotional connection. So if there's authenticity, then there's emotional connection, which means I usually tell writers when they come in with pitches, if you are selling me a high emotive drama, if you didn't cry while writing it, my people aren't going to cry when they're seeing it. If you're writing an action scene, if you didn't sprain an ankle trying to get a stunt sequence in your head, I don't think it's going to play on screen. It's a bit dramatic, but you know what I mean. Which is, we need the connection. People need to feel. If not, what are we doing? And the third thing is we have a little code that we use among the commissioning editors. It's a little code that we use, which is, if you want to know what type of content we're looking for, it's compelling characters in compelling situations that anybody can relate to. So if you see, we're not putting it in a box with genre. That could take place on a space station, that could take place anywhere. But is it a compelling character in a compelling situation that anyone can honestly relate to? So yeah, we're doing a bit of the opposite. We are swinging the doors wide open and saying, listen, we're willing to talk to anybody about anything, but here are our parameters. Is it authentic? Can I make an emotional connection? Do I have a compelling character in a compelling situation that anybody can relate to? Then let's talk.
And then, last question before I open up to the floor, but are there any genres or themes that producers who want to break into the Nigerian market with your channel should avoid? Things that just doesn't sit well with a Nigerian audience, things that might get a negative reaction. So are there any genres or things that should be avoided?
Okay, so because I'm going to two-prong my answer because I sort of sit on both linear and, like Tebogo on linear and, OTT. Linear has sort of shaped up to be family viewing. OTT has sort of shaped up to be individual consumption. Also, okay, I'll say it. Our people are a little hypocritical. So, example is, for instance, when Shaka started playing, in out west, I got calls from my mom's pastor, you see. I got a lot of calls about how it was problematic. And the next morning I got to the office and the data analysts were jumping numbers. So you see, yes, there are things that we are, again, how we should be is a big thing for us, right? So there are going to be lots of, there are certain things we have to walk a fine line between, are we doing this just for the gimmick or is this authentic to the story? Reality-wise, we're not trying to traumatize anybody. In terms of putting a sex scene on screen, is this necessary to the story or not? Is this because it's a mature type of story? What will not work with our young audience? Anything that is inauthentic will immediately be sniffed out. Because again, like I said, culturally we have this weird thing of being talked down to by the media and being told, oh, look at that, I said young people and I said we, as if I'm that young. But anyway, that sort of thing. There's a whole thing of the youth being talked down to. And right now, they're just not taking it. And as long as it just takes one click to switch off, so if you want to lose audience, try to tell the young people what to do. But if you can engage them and say, hi, if we're doing this, why? Have you thought about? A conversation is always welcome.
Awesome. All right, we got about 10 minutes or so left. Any questions? Yeah, there we go. And please, you're more than welcome to address it to anybody directly if you want to.
Thanks. I'm Craig. I'm from Mama Dance Music Library, and we supply music to a lot of the MultiChoice programming. And I'm just curious to know how the music is received. To this last point, inauthentic. We have to try and source West African Afrobeats producers, and we're always trying to find the right music for your programming, for the background, the mood music, the emotions. And I'm just curious, it's a huge task, and I would imagine that it's not easy to find the amount of music that you need. There's only so many libraries, and then you're venturing into original composition and licensing music from labels and things, but then the copyright issues are quite tricky. So I'm just curious, from your panel how you're finding that, what could we do to provide better music for your producers?
Sure.
Can I take that? So, actually, our team has engaged on a very intentional effort to freshen up the libraries, right? We want, when someone is watching a particular show and they're in the kitchen, they must know that that's a particular show play, right? Our shows kind of started looking and sounding the same. So in Middle and Mass Scripted, we are taking a purposeful venture to develop original composition, mood music, board music, score music for each and every show, so that once you're watching a particular show, that you know you are watching X show, right? So currently all our shows on air, from How to Manifest a Man, Mahayeng, Umkoka is a great success, by the way, how could I forget that, of what original composition and score does, right? If Umkoka is playing anywhere, you will know that Umkoka is playing. If Shaka was playing, you now know Shaka is playing. So we're actually moving away from the library music approach, and we're having a discussion with the producers and writers to create original composition. We have a show launching next week called Kokota, where original soundtracks was done for that, and we're hoping our audiences will love that. They're showing that they love music they can associate with a particular show, and that's the angle we at Middle and Mass are going with our music.
All right. To take that from West, we are heavily reaching into libraries now, because a lot of our shows needed original music. I sort of have a background in the music business, so this one I'm a bit passionate about. The thing is this. There's a slight misnomer with the use of Afrobeats, especially for our music, almost with the belief that all West African music is either Afrobeats or... It sort of dates the music a little bit. Let me explain. If Amapiano is what's really big now, you're not going to say that's what's going to be really big in 20 years, right? So you don't want to date the music with... We have a lot of producers locally. We don't have a lot of composers. Let me rephrase. We are not connected with a lot of composers. So with the library music, we do a lot of library music, but we are always on the lookout for composers, because our music is sort of a hybrid, and what kind of Afrobeats really is the core of Afrobeat. Fun fact, Afrobeats and Afrobeat are two different types of music if you take away the S. Insane, but true. So Afrobeats is you take Afrobeat, which is what Fela did, and you cross it with something else. That's where Afrobeats was born. Which means if we play on any genre, as long as the producer knows how to infuse it with Afrobeat, which is ours. So we are looking for wider soundscapes, and the way we will get that is with composers, and we are desperately looking for composers who can come into the space and liaise with us. And look, we have a lot of commission editors who speak music, and we have a lot of producers who speak music, a lot. So, because we do have a background of producing original music. And now that our volumes are exploding, we can't do it the way we used to, so.
Thanks, Victor. Any more questions? I also just want to jump in on something that I've experienced recently. We did an Afrikaans procedural for KykNet, where part of each program wanted a little bit of an Afrikaans pop song, and you have a montage of visiting all the different characters while the song is playing, and we just couldn't find Afrikaans vocal music in any library. So that's, I mean, definitely a little bit of a blind spot maybe. So we had to go directly to Afrikaans record companies, Afrikaans performers, and really it was astronomical what they were asking for, just a small snippet of an Afrikaans pop song. So there is definitely a gap there as well in your library, I think. Awesome.
I think maybe if I may add from a reality perspective, right? We are the poor cousins, so we don't have money to compose for ourselves. So Mnet has a library music that it uses. We try and final mix most of our content internally. And if the label is registered with Capasso, we are always looking to explore. And the more we have, the better, because what we are struggling with is that shows are starting to sound the same because there's a smaller pool of mood music that you can use. So yeah, I think we can always look into our post-production and see if we can expand our offering. Yeah.
Thanks, Lerato. Last question from anyone? All good? Happiness? Oh, there we go.
Hi, I'm Jasmine Duthie from Rockpool Media. When producers are developing original concepts with Mnet, what rights can producers keep as opposed to the broadcaster? Thanks.
Cool. Nicola, yeah.
It depends. Am I on? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, it depends. There's multiple models. So it depends also what you come to us with. If we are taking all of the risk, then we will own the rights full out if we develop it fully. But if that is not what you're wanting for and you're wanting a co-production model, then we can look at that also. Then there's also the third model, which is licensing. So there is not only just one model available. It depends on what you are also planning on doing with the content. But then also based on the model, our level of investment will change and differ. Yeah.
And sorry, Nicola, maybe just throw in the pre-sale. How does IP, what happens with IP in a pre-sale?
So ultimately on a pre-sale, the rights belong to the producer, and our investment is a license investment and an equity investment to a period of, depending on if it's a series, 7 years, or if it's a movie, 10 years. Also depends if the DTI is involved and who's not involved and who your international financiers are or however else you close your finance loop. So there really are multiple ways to skin that cat.
Thanks, Nicola. All right, is that it? Thank you. So just thanks to Nicola, Waldimar, Victor, Tebogo, and Lerato. And our door is always open at MultiChoice. Remember, there's a portal where on Mnet's corporate website where all new pitches can go through, and it just ensures that every pitch has a digital footprint and that it lands on the correct bunch of commissioning editors' tables, and they read it and can evaluate. So thank you so much. We're looking forward to seeing your pitches. Thank you.